Hi folks, I hope everyone's doing well. I just got this SNG in. It's actually on loan from my buddy Alex, and he want to hear my thoughts about it and stuff. I've had a Strider since 2014 until like 2017, so I have one for about 3 years. I have about half a dozen Striders over the years, and I currently don't own any except for my ProTech Strider. All right, this is the only other Strider I own. And the reason being is just that in a way, I feel like I outgrew the brand just because it doesn't really quite do it for me anymore. Back in the day when I first got into knives and stuff, it's more of just kind of like, all right, this guy says this is great, this guy said that is great. All right, let's check them all out and see what's what. And I really did enjoy the Striders in the 3 years of ownership of them. I carried them very regularly, and I really did enjoy them. Hence I had like half a dozen of them. Why did I sell them all off? Well, part of it is just the whole. It's kind of hard to defend again. It's hard to defend Mick, on his background back in the day. So that was kind of gnawing on me a little bit. On the other hand, there's two functional things about this that I just didn't quite jive with me back in the day anyway. One of them still don't. One of them is fixed. So the first thing I'll talk about is the lock. Every Strider I had back in the day had lock slip. Every single one. They all just fail at the slightest tap of the spine, or the really, really bad one was that I can just, white knuckle this grip and I can pop the lock. So this kind of, eat at the myth that Chris Reeve said that, oh, your grip is part of the lock for the frame lock. That's a lie. Your grip does nothing for the lock. If it wasn't for this big ass choil, it probably would have cut me. But at the same time, this big choil is actually one of my big complaints about Striders. I understand they added in as kind of like a safety feature, but if you make this right, your lock's not gonna fail. On a frame lock, the only reason a lock should fail, assuming your lock geometry is correct, is for this lock really to buckle. That's really the only time that the lock should fail. And even then, if it fails, and when it buckles, it's gonna push all the way to the opposite side of the liner. You still have a big chunk of titanium that's blocking the blade from actually fully closing on you. So to me, that's kind of silly. That's besides the point. So fit and finish on this guy, I say is a marginal improvement. I definitely really like the swedge grind on this. This was something that was on the customs that I really like, in the performance series I had as well. That was one of the big selling points of the performance series that they had a switch on. To me, it just makes a Strider looks from good to great. It is a very attractive design. All right, but that is kind of this is gonna go into my the main reason why I got rid of my Strider besides the lock is this short cutting edge. All right, this short cutting edge is just you got a 3.5 inch blade, but you only have effective, I think, like 2.78 of cutting edge, and to me, like that's not much cutting edge at all for such a big knife. I mean, look at this, like all this, this dead space here I can't use when I'm cutting. I can use this first a little bit, but if I'm choking up, I got all this dead space here. That's not really good to have. Compared to this knife here, which is a smaller knife. If you look here, it's a much smaller knife. I know my camera's at an angle. It's a front flipper. So if you do, it's a shorter knife by like 1/2 inch. But I get way more cutting edge. Let's see, my fingers are in the way. Let's try not to cut myself here. But you see how much more cutting edge I get compared to the two. And I can still choke this up all the way. This is a Lespec Edition G that's made by Lion Steel. These are limited production, so you're gonna have a harder time finding one. But this is a very well designed knife. Execution questionable. If you're interested in a video on this, I'll probably do one. So that goes to points like it's not like a normal thing to do. All right. So the cutting edge is a big gripe, and having to carrying them daily and using them for 3 years, I had plenty of feedback on how I feel about the short cutting edge, and it's the fact that I don't have any besides my ProTech kind of speaks volume about like, yeah, I like using my stuff, and Strider's left me wanting. All right, so back to what I was talking about with the fit and finish before I go on a tangent about the cutting edge. The fit and finish is marginally better, I really don't like this coating. It's 20 CV, so it's already, really nice corrosion resistant, stuff. But this coating is really grippy. Trying to break down a box with it, it's just gonna bind a bit. So not a fan of that. I know it looks really nice, cool, and tactical and stuff too. But I feel like 90% of us who buy these are average Joes that just want to have a cool knife. We're not, out in the fields and, in the dirt and in the grime and doing all the law enforcement work and stuff too. Yeah, if you're Leo or something, this works for you, that's awesome. Thank you for your service. I do like this aluminum scale. I actually really had no issues with the G10. I personally love the G10. People are like, G10's weak. I'm just like, try to break G10, then you can see how strong G10 is. G10 is freaking strong, and I love G10. And I do really like how it's hitting the hardware on this side minus the pivot. So you have, all the screws on the frame side. Part of me really wish they changed out this spanner pivot, because my old fix was I just use a fork and I bend, one of the tooth out, and I use that as my spanner tool, because I ain't about paying like $50 for a spanner tool. I ain't that guy. I'm gonna go as cheap as I can, and my spanner tool was this fork I picked up at a thrift store for like 20 cents. So, that was that, and I kind of wish they changed that, but I understand it's iconic Strider. Speaking of iconic Strider, if you throw this in a time machine and throw it back in 2013 and I pick it up, or most action Strider guys will just think, okay, it's a mixed Strider custom, but for most part, it's still more or less the same Strider from 2013. There's really no real improvements on this, and to me, I'm pretty disappointed. At very least, I feel like, someone like Chris Reeve, who's been in this game for a lot longer, well, the company rather, since Chris Reeve left, CRK. The company has been a lot longer, and they're trying to innovate, trying to bring out new models, they're trying to improve the old design and stuff, but for them, the only real change on this knife is swedge grind, which is already on, the custom. These silver studs, which is one of the performance series. All right, so that's 4 years ago, and 4 to 5 years ago, and now they have this aluminum show scale. So not much of an innovation in there, in my opinion. And I personally feel like one thing they could do and I'm probably in a minority here who feel like I will love it if Strider can pull this grind all the way back, to where the Strider, name is, and get rid of this sharpening choil or the blade stop choil, shrink this forward finger choil or get rid of it completely, and just have, a full 3.5-inch cutting edge. Now, I know people are going to be like, wait, how's it going to stop then? Well, if you look here, at the end of the last jimping, you can very easily, there's a room in there to put a stop pin for a blade stop. It's like this, ZT here, it has 2 stop pins, one for open, one for closed, and there's plenty of real estate for it. So there's really no reason. And this is, a $220 knife. This is like a $400 knife. If you want to do that kind of, if they want to do that kind of innovation and put a stop pin in there, I don't see why not. Henders did it, and they were, one of their main competitions. So I feel like that's really what's lacking on the innovation department on it. One thing I do really like as well about this is, which I can't grind too much about, is the blade grind. It's actually still pretty thin behind the edge. It could be a little thinner. Yeah, I can always have, blade being a little thinner. But that's the nice thing about the full flat grind ones. They're really always nice and thin. The 3/4 grind ones are a lot stouter, but they're almost too stout for everyday use, to be honest. I mean, the most I can use them for is opening packages. If you're trying to, eat an apple with it, you're splitting that apple. If the tip is so stout to a point that if you're trying to do any fine work with the tip, it's too thick for it. At that point, I'm you're far better off getting your Swiss Army knife out. So, these are, some of the things that about this that haven't changed. That's why the way I feel about the Strider is kind of the same as why I sold it. It's why, in my ProTech Strider video, I talked about how, to me, this is way more exciting than this. Because at very least, this gets the nightmare grind and a really nice, mirror finish on it. Essentially, getting a feature of $1,500 knife in a $500 package. Whereas then this is essentially the same $400 knife they were trying to sell all those years. Not much innovation at all. And that to me is very disappointing. And on the other hand too is that as, less and less people are interested in the hard use tactical stuff, people gravitate more for, lighter use stuff. And because I feel like people finally realize that, hey, my grandfather is a good example, because he carried a charade slip joint for years, and it's a thin, this blade stock can probably fit three or four of those charade blades in there, and he worked in home renovation and stuff, and that was plenty for him to to use his knives on. So I'm just saying, how realistically, unless you're in the military or something, I can understand that. And so if you want a really tough, hard to use knife, I'm just like, I don't think this is the best option, because again, if you're lucky on these where you don't have lock slip, that's a good to go thing. But what company or what knives I had that never had any issue with lock slip? It's Cold Steel. All right, this is a Cold Steel AD10, not a custom, so relax. I put a hole in it just because I was curious how it works out. And I ground it a little thinner so it slices better, because for my uses, I prefer a slicer. This one to me is a compromise between sliceability and ridiculous amount of strength. I did break a Cold Steel knife before, and I snapped the blade before I broke the lock. I was curious if I can break, the lock. I broke the blade first. So at that point, it was just like, okay, the triad lock has definitely even proved to me that it's more than strong enough. And even then, I still get my forward finger choil, so I can choke up if I need to. And I get a lot more cutting edge. Granted, this is more of an SMF size, but I mean, look at this. Like, I get almost a whole half an inch more cutting edge with this. So I can get way more cutting done with this. And because it costs less than half of what this costs, and this is much easier to get, let's say I break it. Let's say I price something and I snap the blade, or if I'm out in the field and I lose it somehow. I'm not heartbroken losing a $200 knife versus a $400 knife, And if you want to say, oh, the Strider clip, will stay on you really well, it's like, yeah, this is a good clip. This ain't going anywhere. This is a really stout clip, and I sometimes have a hard time trying to take my knife out of the pocket, so it's going to stay on you as well. Again, if we want to talk about sheer function, I feel like the Cold Steel offering, anything in triad lock, is a more solid of an offering than anything from Strider, in my opinion. I know the fanboys, and it's going to ruffle some feathers, this video, but I'm just trying to be real here, And on the other hand, too, is that, for people, urban, suburban, even some rural instances, I find that a PM2 to be more than adequate. And a PM2, if you look at this, is very much the same as an SNG. You get, these two big finger choils, but you get more cutting edge with a PM2 because you don't have that stupid sharpening choil there. Yeah, granted, your tip is going to be a little finer, but with a swedge grind on there, how much finer are you really looking at here, right? So again, this is a significantly cheaper knife, and then compression lock is strong as hell. And I really haven't even seen a compression lock fail. Frame locks and iron locks, so many I've seen fail. It's not a raving opinion about this, but I am kind of speaking from, a lot of EDC use and stuff. Now, I haven't tried to survive with just this knife on me to really, push it to its limit or anything, but from basic uses of, you know, cardboard cutting and some food prep and, you know, cutting zip ties, stripping wires, you know, these little everyday things. I mean, it'll get the job done, but so can a Swiss Army knife and an Opinel. You know, it doesn't have the cool factor, but, you know, if you like a Strider for just the cool factor, I'm with you on that. I think it's cool. But I do feel like, you know, maybe it is time to change and innovate some, you know, things. You know, maybe give it some more cutting edge. I think that's fine. You know, move all the logos to like the locking side of the frame. I think that will look just as cool. And, you know, so, and then back in the day, when Strider had an awesome bulletproof warranty, I feel like that was worth getting on train for. Nowadays, I'm not sure what a warranty looks like, but I still don't think it justifies the price anymore when there's so many amazing and incredible options out there now. All right, so, you know, I hope, you know, you find this kind of useful if you're trying to decide if you want to buy a Strider or not. For me personally, I can't wait to send this knife back to Alex because I don't think I will ever miss having one in my collection at all. All right. Thank you for watching, and you have a good one.